especially automotives and all.
Yes.
This is quite a challenge.
So we are expecting that a bad wave, if at all, it would be at the end of May. We would see the worst of the things. If in case we can tide off from that, probably we would be able to sustain till next peak happens. We don't know when, but the main thing is anticipation is by May, and we would have surge of cases coming in.
Right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I welcome you to the CII Arogya World webinar series. Today, the topic is mental well-being in the new normal. May I welcome our speakers from their very busy schedules to interact with the people at large. Once again, may I welcome Mr.Sarthak Ranade, Managing Director, Janssen India, the Janssen Pharmaceutical Company of Janssen and Johnson, Dr. Kowshik, CMO, Pvt.Ltd, Pvt.Ltd, Dr. Ramadevi, Managing Director, Amara Hospital. The session will be moderated by Dr. Ashwin, who is founder, Manah Ashoka Fellow. Today, we will be discussing about the enhancing health and mental well-being in the new normal, lifestyle modification for a healthy mind, emerging workplace strategies around mental well-being. May I thank our partners, our institutional partner NABH, IMA, and other organizations who have helped us in putting together this program. May I request Dr. Ashwin to kindly moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Raki. First of all, our gratitude to CII for hosting a session which I think is could not have been more timely. Given the extended lockdown now, it's putting incredible amount of pressure, both from a financial standpoint for businesses around the world, but more importantly on employees and leaders who are struggling to make sense of this new world. So thank you, CII. I would also like to, as a member of the board of Arogya World, thank the team at Arogya who has quickly put this panel together and got us excellent members on the panel, Mr. Ranade, Dr. Kowshik, and Dr. Rama. The idea today is to start thinking about how we have to take care of the mental well-being of ourselves, of our organizations, and our team members. Clearly, this is an emerging scenario. None of us have answers. None of us know what to expect, but we have to be prepared. And I think the important realization is this is not a one-off event. Things like this could happen in the future. Things like this are expected to happen, and organizations will have to become resilient, both from a business continuity point of view, but more importantly, managing the well-being of the employees. This is probably the biggest or the most important containment history in the world that has happened in India particularly. We are not used to be contained in such situation. And as we emerge out of this lockdown, so many questions are emerging. And it's a great panel. We're privileged to have a great panel to have this discussion. So let me start with Mr. Ranade. You are at the helm of affairs of a pharmaceutical company. On a business side, you might not be impacted as much as some other sectors, but clearly there is an apprehension amongst the employees and the team. So first of all, if you can share some light on how you think this has impacted you as a business, and then we will talk about some specific questions I have in mind for you.
Sure. So thank you, Dr. Ashwin. And first of all, I want to thank CII as well as Arogya World. In fact, when they approached me with this topic, I was very impressed, because I've been speaking in many webinars, also listening on to many webinars, because today, if you see, this is like the season of webinars. We all are on webinars, every alternate day. But what actually attracted me most was the relevance of the topic. And I want to really thank you that you picked this important topic, which has not been discussed much. So in fact, there's a lot of focus right now in terms of business continuity or reimagining for the future and ensuring that your organizations, how they should be looked or how they should be structured post-COVID. But this is a very important topic, and I'm glad you thought about it. So, Dr. Ashwin, before I, get into the business side, I just thought of, dwelling a little more on the topic of mental health, if you allow me. And I think it's such an
Please.
important because, unfortunately, even during normal times, this is a topic which is hardly discussed. And we need to clearly call out that. So I just wanted to first lay out the burden of mental health in India. And as a pharmaceutical company operating in this space, we see this very closely. We work with a lot of KOLs and stakeholders. There are, and some people may not know it, but there are these staggering numbers which I wanted to put across. So we've got 197 million patients who suffer from mental disorders in India. So that's of a baseline effect. And this burden is already high, and it is quite natural to say that, especially when you are in a crisis or in an epidemic, this burden is only going to go up. And there are a lot of analogies to that. So if you look back in 2008, when the financial crisis came our way, there was a marked increase in terms of mental disorders in the country, and we would possibly expect a similar wave happening during the COVID and post-COVID. So I think we need to be absolutely ready for it, and I'm glad this topic is being discussed here. And Dr. Ashwin, as you rightly said, this is like unprecedented, right? We've never been prepared for such kind of an epidemic. And naturally, every one of us, be it our employees or even all of us, we are going through these various emotions of fear, anxiety, depression, and these are quite natural and normal responses to this epidemic, because there are many uncertainties around. It's very complex. We don't know what is the end date. So it's quite natural for all of us to go through it. In fact, I wanted to also share another interesting survey, which the Indian Psychiatry Society had done very recently. So what they found from the survey was there is a 20% rise in the mental illness, from the start of this COVID impact in India. Within just a short period of time, there's a 20% increase in mental illness. And they go on to further project that 1 out of every 5 Indians is going to suffer from some degree of mental illness. So this is huge, and this is going to really, stare at us in a big way. And I think every one of us should join hands to really do whatever we can. Coming back to to the business side, I was just mentioning that fortunately we are in the healthcare industry. So the healthcare sector is not impacted much. We did see some supply challenges, but I think everything is now sort of getting back to normal. I think what we are really focused on right now at this point in time is how do we take care of our employees so that they in turn take care of our customers and other stakeholders. So I think that's where, Dr. Ashwin, we are largely focused on.
Right. So one of the things that you had mentioned in our discussion this morning is for long we have assumed that people will cope. Right? It's sort of our tendency to say we are a strong company, employees will figure out a way to cope. And you made a very interesting remark that it is not obvious for everybody how to cope. So if you can shed some light on what is it that you are seeing in the employee base and what are you doing to sort of mitigate those issues?
Yeah, and thank you so much. And and while I try to answer that, let me also step back and say what has changed. So, Dr. Ashwin, actually, I was sort of reflecting on this over the last few days, because the last few days I've been extremely busy. And I've been reflecting in terms of what has changed for all of us. So, very clearly, there has been a monumental change in a very short period of time. So, for example, our whole economy was a very high-touch economy. So, most of us, were dependent on in-person interactions, sitting together in business meetings, and that's how business used to be run. So there was a lot of touch element which was there. And unfortunately, what has happened is in the last 40-45 days, we have moved suddenly from a high-touch economy to a low-touch economy. So we are hardly seeing each other. We are all sort of, restricted to our own homes. We are not able to meet even our families or relatives. So every one of us are going through very different kind of emotions. And, we have picked up very new habits. So the way we shop, the way we eat, the way we work, that has been a significant change. So most of us have been working from homes. And I think that was something, if you had asked me in normal times, can you run the whole company sitting at home? I would have possibly laughed at you that this is something which is not possible. But I think we have been able to do that. And, a huge amount of change in a very, very short period of time has its stress or challenges, right? And I think to the point which I was referring, I think we need to just step back and keep in mind that everyone doesn't adjust or respond to the same agility or to the same speed, because everyone is going through different circumstances. So I think as leaders, I've been constantly reminding people that let's be more empathetic. Let's understand that, now we are working from home. There are different challenges, issues to handle. So many people have elderly people to care for. Many of our colleagues have young children to look after, and you can imagine to keep this enthusiastic young children at home and try to keep them engaged and try to ensure that you find some ways to expel their energy, because they need constant attention. They want that freedom to go out and play. So I think this has significantly changed, and all our employees, and I'm sure employees of many other companies, have been trying to adjust to this new ways of working, which are quite daunting, I would say.
Right. Absolutely. I think you made some very important points here. We are moving from this high touch and also very interactive kind of environment to more virtual. I think this is no industry has been more impacted than the manufacturing industry in this sense. And Dr. Kowshik, I want to bring you in here to just understand, what is it that has changed for you as an organization? And you had also mentioned that you have put in some mitigating steps. You had put in a playbook to restart your operation. So if you can talk about these two things.
All right. Thank you, Ashwin, for giving this opportunity from CII platform and Arogya World. And good afternoon to all there. With this unprecedented time, with the level of ambiguity and uncertainty on the business, on how to run the business overall, taking into consideration one, a business perspective, and then the second, the employees, there is a huge level of anxiety among the employees, whether I am safe to work. With the second part, the government also putting in a lot of regulations and regulatory requirements which we have to meet. And third, as a company, we have a huge network of suppliers and dealers. For us, the business to run is just not the manufacturing alone, but then to make sure that the supply comes and the dealers are open. We are finding a huge challenge. One, running the business, because as we are aware, the social distancing is one of the major aspects what the government has put in. And as part of the lockdown, what we see is the social distancing itself will not allow our manufacturing process to work smoothly. Along with the other regulations, we find that the employees' mental health, how to keep an emotional balance of the employees' mental health when it comes to people, since it is a manufacturing sector, they are not so techno-friendly that work from home, and those things would happen with a small sector of people. In our company, with some 7,000 people working, maybe 2 or 5%. The rest of them are all into blue-collar type of environment. So the employees by themselves have an insecurity of their job. On a long run, how automobile industries will go forward, what would be my future in the company, what would be my developmental, capability. So these are a couple of the things which come across to their mind. As I would just project a presentation, a PPT, just let me know if you would be able to see that. Give me a minute, it's uploading.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Yes, it's on.
Yeah, thank you. So coming with this unprecedented status, what we see is just not the physical health, the virus would attack our body and cause of ill health, That's one concern, but what is really fueling mental health matters. People are worried about their family, their job, and the world at large. And when you see about mental health, we have to look at this not and only on the part of the body, but also on mind and spirit. To see a proper, the necessary ingredient is basically to balance the emotion, thoughts, and action to live a normal life. And I just put it in, 5 stages. This is common to any of the incident, what or an stressor, what can cause to a human. We had a stage 1 where there is the sudden lockout, and people were in a phase of shock, denial, not able to get their essential items. They started stockpiling some of the essential commodities. It might be sanitizers, masks, etc. Then came the stage of, a fear or anger, where people started asking or blaming themselves, why it's happening to us? I have no role in this. Why it should happen to me? So there comes the stage 2, where there are a lot of anxiety issues coming in. And the stage 3 is a feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. Here, basically, these are the 2 stages which are impacting the emotional health very badly. The stage 4 comes to a phase of accepting the fact, and then a stage of optimism probably once the business starts opening and resumes as a business as usual. A small study which the United States have done to show when, what are the signs of distress due to COVID, we were able to see that people are mostly worried and with anxiety and depression, which related to job loss. And we could see a lot of substance abuse being reported, that people started to indulge in alcohol, prescription drugs, etc., etc. So we are seeing a major changes in the mental health status of people across the world. It's not just India. I just got this status from the, the report from, US. Probably the Indian reports are there. Because of shortage of time, I couldn't research that. All right. Coming to the signs of mental distress, people get into 2 phases of anxiety and depression. In anxiety, we know that people basically have an impending increase in heart rate, sweating, trembling, etc. And in depression is the lowness, feeling of sadness, irritability, tiredness, etc. So these are a couple of symptoms one has to recognize themselves. Is it as a phase of basically a mental health issue? What is more important is a phase of depression, we would be able to identify ourselves when we feel ourselves feeling very deeply sad, lack of interest at work, forgetfulness, making decisions, becoming troublesome, loss of energy, etc. But what is more important is how we can recognize our coworker or the family members, whether they go into depression. It becomes very, very complex to understand. So some of the indicators are, we see, someone is withdrawn from the team or isolate themselves. They are indifferent to the situation, putting things off, or basically we see, they are missing their deadline at work, or basically they are in absent mind, or you see a sudden change in their appearance. These are all the indication to identify a person who basically would be on a stage of depression due to the situation. Just to give a clarity on how can we stay mentally healthy by ourselves, main thing is just to create and maintain a routine. What we do, because we are, as of now, working from home, we have a habit of, okay, we don't have to go to office. I'm able to get up at 9:30, 10, do my breakfast at 12, 11, and then, they miss their whole routine. So stick on to your routine, have a schedule, maintain your physical activity and exercises, have a balanced food, and social distancing doesn't mean that you cannot connect emotionally. So even the World Health Organization has come out with the terminology as physical distancing now. It's not social distancing. You, as a humans, we are a social animal. So physical distancing is just to keep yourself away by 1 meter. It doesn't mean that socially you just disconnect with everyone.
Right.
Yeah. And coming to, the mental health support, whenever you identify or recognize someone else having some mental health symptoms, which we are supposed to be knowing, at least in a small level, we should help them to seek for support from the mental health professionals. So I'll just take you through what we at Toyota are doing. This is the general slides. Okay. We're looking at a 3R step. What we want to do is reset, relearn, and rejuvenate. We are looking at give a full stop for what was happened before. We cannot work the same way as before. It could be a new normal, what we are looking forward to go with. We want to reset the whole operation strategies to how we involve our members at the workplace. It would be a total reset, followed by a relearn. It might be a attitudinal issue to how we have to get in the morning, right? We have a process to see that they check themselves, then come get their temperature checked, declare themselves, sanitize themselves, put on the mask, get to work, report if they have issues. So that is a new normal, which they were not seen before. So this is something they have to relearn on how they have to get to the new normal. And rejuvenate, though we basically would be able to support them by providing a safe and healthy environment. Now we have to help them to how to help them to get back to their mind, body, and soul to be connected well physically. So this is an aspect we are working on.
Great.
For that, I'll just come to what as Toyota we are doing for the families to help them, support with their emotional health. We start with our managing directors, sharing a message to all of the employees through all different communication channels possible to see that at this time we are there with you and we want to make sure that your health and safety is just maintained well. And let's work to rework to make sure that this change, we will take it as a new normal and see the next step forward. One of the aspects, what you see to keep the employees mentally, in a stable format is to engage them. Main mode of communication, the main thing is communicate, communicate, communicate. This is what we are following as a company to make sure the employees are kept, informed what's happening around in the company and the business, what the future. So one, we try to have some engagement activities, which would be with the family, which would be with their, giving suggestions on how we can work together to make the workplace safe, the community safe. And we have our vice president himself driving the yoga and meditation program, uniting the mind, body, and soul. So these are activities going on with, more than 800 of them actively participating in day-to-day, process. All right. So we just to show, just give you in a brief, we are working to see that employees and families are given access to, healthcare. Maybe through the EAP, we have channelized, counseling sessions for people at distress. We communicate often to use the facility where access to counselors are available virtually. Also, we have a unique program called connect with the members. So the supervisors would compulsorily have to connect with the members who are spread across the state and districts across Karnataka. So twice in a week they connect to understand if they have any concerns, any sort of activity, issues what they face, so that we can support them. We do have a telehealth facility where they have a free access to virtually consulted doctor. And these are the facility we have provided to the employees per se. What we expect of the employees, we as the the lockdown just gets over and we restart our operation, we are requesting our members to make sure that they involve in following the rules, applicable rules, right from following this directions given by the Ministry of Health and the guidelines, the Government Health Authority, and the company-specific rules. indulge in healthy behaviors on hygiene and also on personal, on a personal level. So we expect the supervisors, a very strong tool, what we want to put it to the supervisor is to keep asking the members down the line, how are you? Are you okay? This is something where we keep it as 3R, reach out to the employees, respond, don't react, understand what is their difficulty, and if at all they recognize someone who has some emotional health issues, we have a process of referring them to the mental health professionals. To the next normal, this is actually adopted from McKinsey's, where we see the crisis will go in 3 horizons. During the crisis, as we have the lockdown, the employee safety response plan, business continuity, followed with the resilience with economic and social sustainability over time, and then coming to return to the normal productivity line. And then comes to the stage 3, where it is a reimagination. We have to adopt, see, for example, now it's a manually intensive work where the social distancing to all these aspects are becoming, are going to be a big issue around. So, imagination is looking at flexibility, technology adoptions to make sure the human-to-human touch of, as we know, if a manufacturing unit, you have to have a workplace where we cannot maintain that social distance of 1 meter for a long time. So we have to rework on the whole system of our productions also, and then the reform, basically taking it to the next level of business sustainability. All right. This is an overall. Besides this, as sharing is caring. As a community, for the community, a lot of activity has been done from the CSR team, right from capacity building of the COVID hospital across the Karnataka region, providing them, adequate PPE kits, thermometers, whatever is essentials, the food packets for the people who are basically on daily wages or restrained from going to work. So this a couple of activity we have been taken over by Toyota. Yes, a community part, we had put on a restart manual. It's on a technological know-how, how to start post-lockdown. The manual was an elaborative one. This was done on a benefit to share it with the community so that they can operate the business safely, taking adequate precautions. Dr. Ashwin, that's from me, and just to give it in a small way, what we are seeing, is as in a lighter note. What we see is the COVID-1 version was looking like, we're happy for the first 1 week. It was a honeymoon period, so it was like made for each other. Everyone at home were happy. Oh, I got a break for 1 week. Probably the second wave, where the second lockdown, we saw the MAID is become MAID, made for each other. So people started working for each other, all right. And then the phase 3, where the version 3, we got to see people say, getting in mad for each other, where you that emotional health really getting impacted there. And post lockdown, we would be seeing probably a care and share for each other would be the next normal.
Great. Absolutely. Dr. Kowshik, thank you for sharing, the amazing work that is happening at Toyota. I think what you mentioned, while there is a huge scope of activities happening, it all revolves around what you mentioned in the very beginning, which is basically send a message that we are there for you, right?
Exactly.
And all the tools and the methods are following from that sense of making everybody comfortable that we are there for you. I want to check if Dr. Rama is on. She has apparently joined by audio. Dr. Rama, are you able to hear us?
Dr. Ashwin, I am not sure if she has been able to join. So I suggest let's go other join.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So apparently she has joined by audio, but we'll check that. So, Mr. Ranade, coming back to you, I think there is a whole bunch of activities, as you saw, like Toyota is doing, and I'm sure you and others are doing. But I want to touch upon another aspect of this whole episode: is what is it? How has it impacted you as a person, as a leader, and your own emotional well-being, if you will? And this is for both of you. We'll start with Mr. Ranade, you, and then go to Dr. Kowshik.
Yeah. So thank you. I think Dr. Ashwin, that's a great question, and I think we need to remember that all of us are humans, right? So I'm no different, even though I'm leading this organization. I've also gone through the kind of emotions what every one of us has really, sort of witnessed. I think some of the things, and let me be very frank, in fact, as it all started, the first week was quite unnerving even for me, because I also went through different kind of emotions of fear, anxiety, loss of control, how this is going to play out. But obviously, at this point in time, that's where your leadership is tested, right? So, I have to really step back and say that, look, people look up to you. You need to be the one who can give them support. So, it took some time to sort of build that kind of, recharge your own batteries to ensure that, you can stay cool, you can step back, and you can start giving and taking decisions which are required. So yes, it has been a roller coaster of emotions, Dr. Ashwin, but I've been holding up myself well, and I think again, as I said, this is a test of leadership for everyone, and I think everyone is looking up to you. I think one personal thing which really struck me was the need to demonstrate empathetic leadership during these times, because you need to lead with empathy at this point in time, and I think that's what I'm more focused on, if you ask me.
Great. Thank you very much. I think that's an important point. The corporate world has woken up to this new realization of how not only we have to build the right systems, but also leaders to demonstrate the empathy to deal in this situation. So, Dr. Kowshik, anything you want to share before we go to Dr. Rama about your own personal transformation, if you will, during this period? And how are you managing the emotional roller coaster that we are all on?
All right. It's a very good question. As you and I both go through the same boat here, where with having all the adequate resources, we are actually, though the essential commodities are still available, we have all the resources available with us. In spite of that, I too had a sort of a mental stress around. It's not about just my personal thing, but as a company, when you have to move around, there would be huge, this is totally a new environment for the business altogether. They know to run the business. But when it is in health aspects to, manage, they have no clarity on how to go about, what to go about with. And with the directions from the government changing, and then the, employees' expectation, how we have to work around as a modality to ensure one side take care of the employees, the other side keeping the regulatory requirement in mind, and third, making the our environment healthy and safety. These three aspects had to be worked, and that too without we didn't get any sort of a hint of this happening a month back or 2 months back before January. So Ashwin, we had a pandemic preparedness plan. Frankly, to be frank with you, sometime in 2018 itself, we had a pandemic preparedness plan done, explained to the whole organization. But when it really struck, it looked like the plan has just collapsed because the whole thing, the science has changed on. Though the the framework was there, the whole science has changed because no one is clear on how the virus is behaving. Earlier, you were thinking it's only confined to China, and all of a sudden came to in India and the government taking this drastic step. Yes, it is actually a personal, it is quite a stressful time in the beginning. As the time eased and the information flew in, it became quite normalcy.
Right. Absolutely. And we will come back to this topic because many of our listeners, attendees, we have close to 150 registered people. So many of them are also in the space that you all are, which is leaders who have not only have to make decision for their organization, but also have to make sure that they are taking care of their own health. So I think this is a great time to bring in Dr. Rama, who's an expert on sleep. And we all know that this is one area which has sort of become a victim of this lockdown, if you will. Whether it is blurring of lines between work and personal life, people end up, and I've seen reports of people working more than usual. And second is people also enjoying the benefits of streaming movies online has put a pressure on sleep and wakeful cycle. So Dr. Rama, first of all, if you can shed some light on how this has impacted the sleep patterns. And second, what is it that everybody should be watchful for?
Sure. So hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So it's very nice to be with you today and to talk to you. I think Dr. Kowshik has set some very good light already on what's been happening. The first thing we think of when we don't have to go into work is I can do things when I feel like doing it. I don't need to get up exactly when I want to. I don't need to be at work at a particular time. So I think when we have 1 or 2 days off, that's kind of nice. But now the lockdown has been extended initially to 2 weeks, then 1 month, then 21 days. And now I think we've been in lockdown for almost 6 weeks or 8 weeks, going on 8 weeks now. And the problem is what happens is, like you said, the lines between when we work and when we have time with family is blurred. Initially, when we thought this was going to be temporary, I think a lot of people, once they realized that there's no choice, people relaxed for a while. They're spending time with families and doing things that they may not do. But now that people are working from home, it's become a new way of life, a new way of work. And some good things is if they're organized, they don't have to spend the time traveling, and they can stay home. But I've seen patients that are staying up until 2 or 4 in the morning, and they're working on the computer late, so they're not able to fall asleep when the lights are off, and they're not able to wake up in the morning. So it's become very difficult, and people are beginning to become more stressed out than before, especially with the lockdown continuing to extend and not knowing when things are going to get back to normal, and also knowing that things aren't going to be normal. They may be a different way. Sleep is important not only for mental health and how you feel, but it's important for a lot of things. We think that with sleep we're shutting things down, but we're actually not. There's a whole host of things that happen during sleep, including memory consolidation, rest, metabolic restoration of the brain, even and what happens when you don't get a sleep. Everything from our memory, our cognition, our the speed at which we respond to things, and our immunity is affected. And just talking about immunity for a while, because this is a time when everybody is afraid of infection, and the people seem to have lower immunity are getting infected more, and this is a known fact. And now even the pathophysiology, we're learning that more than infection, it's immune response that's really causing much of the pathophysiology. So that makes it even more important to get proper sleep. So what can we do? And one thing I want to mention, I think it's probably for women who are working at home and taking care of their family, it's probably even more of a challenge because their servants aren't able to come in. They're having to take care of things at home 24 hours a day. The children aren't going anywhere. Their husbands are home, and they're having to work from home. So my advice is, number one, have a clear schedule. You know, the schedule can be yours, and you can be flexible, but at the same time, draw a line between work time, family time, and housework time. And at the same time, with everybody at home, I think it's really important now for family members to pitch in. In the olden days, when everybody was at home, your grandmother, great-grandmother, they may not have been working, but now women are working from home as hard, if not harder, than men. So it's really important to involve the children, involve everybody in helping with the housework, even if it's something small, like setting the table, clearing the table, helping wash dishes, and put things away. And it's important to look at the home and create different spaces within the home so that people can work in different areas. And with children maybe studying and all, but I think the family time more than ever, it's really important now because it is a stressful time for everyone. See, there's a lot of uncertainty about the future, about jobs, from the leadership, industry leadership down to the lower level. There's a lot of stress. And I think one thing that's really helping us, our communities in India get through this is the family support. So sitting down, rather than sitting and looking at the computer all the time, even when you're with your family, put it away. Talk, let the grandparents talk. Let's learn about our family. Let's learn, hear stories about them. Let's listen to the children. Let's play games together. All of this is important. Coming to sleep, eat dinner early, at least 2 hours before bedtime. And as bedtime comes near, at least for the 1 hour before bedtime, it's important to lower the lights. Lights have become so bright, I think our brains are getting confused because our brains are used to using the sunlight as a cue as to when to wind down and get ready for sleep. And this especially includes the cell phone, the computer, the laptop that we use to work. We should put that away at least 1 hour before we think it's time to sleep, because the blue light from these gadgets is affecting how our brain perceives things. And it's suppressing melatonin, which is a hormone that we require to give a cue that it's time to sleep. And engage in relaxing activities before bedtime. So this is something I think separating the line between work from home, from housework, family time, and having a bedtime routine that we follow. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rama. I think all three of you have sort of, come in from different perspectives, but it seems like there is an underlying theme of what we are discussing here, starting with the importance of building routines, separating your work life from your personal life, creating specific spaces throughout the day. The second thing I think which has come through very clearly is the importance of empathy, whether it is in the work environment or whether it is in the context of your own family. And the third one, I think, which has sort of very strongly come about is the need to reconnect, whether it is with our team members, with our leadership, with our family members, etc. So we will be opening up this discussion to questions from the attendees. So please feel free to add or type your questions. There is a Q&A tab on your screen, and we will take up the questions one by one. In the meanwhile, let me come back to all three of you and just shift the focus a little bit in terms of what are you thinking about going into the future. And I have two different parts to this question. One is the future in the sense of when things open up, when things start functioning again. What are you doing to make sure that the emotional well-being of your teams, of your clients are protected? And also, what are you thinking in terms of long-term planning? Because this pandemic might happen in additional phases as we are beginning to understand, or there could be new interruptions like this which will come in. So what is the short-term plan that organizations like yours are doing to protect the mental well-being, and what are the long-term plans? If I can start with you, Mr. Ranade.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ashwin, thank you so much. That's a very important question. So maybe for the short term, I would say, very similar to what Dr. Kowshik was saying. I think the need of the hour is to take care of our employees. And I think, I represent Johnson & Johnson, where we have a long tradition of caring. In fact, it's been enshrined in our credo for many, many years now. And I think these are the times where we have to do it more. So what we're doing, as called by some of my other colleagues as well, the importance of stay connected. So, the whole organization is digitally connected. So, even though we are not able to see each other, we are separated by distance, but we are united at heart. So our purpose remains same, and as at Johnson & Johnson, our purpose is basically to change the trajectory of human health. That's quite a bold vision to deliver on. But I'm absolutely impressed with the agility and the adaptability with which many of the employees have really stepped up to this. So what we do, Dr. Ashwin, is we connect with the people very regularly. I think that's very important. It's important to transparently share information what you have, because the situation is fast moving, right? I mean, we have to give possibly weekly guidance or fortnightly guidance. And that's what we do. We do check on them in terms of their well-being. So very similar to what Dr. Kowshik said, we have got an employee assistance program where employees can seek professional counseling 24/7. We're giving them tools to stay healthy. So it's not just the mental, but it's also the physical and the spiritual. So we've got a lot of exercise happening virtually, yoga exercise, meditation exercise. One good thing which I've realized, Dr. Ashwin, one good thing out of this is that this whole crisis has brought us much closer together. And now I can say we know our fellow colleagues more deeper on a personal level than what we used to do when we used to sit next to each other in the office. So, for example, let me tell you, I was invited on one of the meetings, and we consciously do this. So what we do, it's every time when we do virtual calls, it's not just about work. We do take time to have fun. So, on one Friday evening, I received an invite from one of the business for me to join in, and the agenda was not shared. I joined in there, and I was pleasantly surprised that for the next 1 hour, we discovered there are many birders in our company, who are into photography, shooting birds. There are people who can mimic, the people who are good singers and all. So it was great to know each other more personal, and we had a lot of fun together. So I think this is something which we are doing a lot to keep the teams engaged and motivated. The other thing which we do, as I mentioned about it, is encouraging people to stay healthy. So, I think as Dr. Rama said, it's very important to, carve out your own schedule, right? So what we do is we tell people to have flexible work hours, and not feel guilty about it. So, for example, I've been very vocally telling my people, it's perfectly fine that if you want to take 2-3 hours off during the day, maybe during the lunchtime, when you have to look after your kids, small babies, or your elderly parents, don't feel guilty about it. It's natural. Just let your manager and your team members know that these are off times for you during which you are committed to something else. That's very important. Yeah, so we have given that kind of flexibility. People have appreciated that empathy, that yes, my manager is understanding from where I'm coming. So that's, I think, more or less what we're doing for the short term. I think in the long term, especially the healthcare industry, I would say, our purpose remains same. We want to continue to make an impact in the world, make people more healthier. Only the way we'll do it will change. So what we are doing, of course, the digital technology adoption has gone significantly high. In fact, there's a joke which is going around on WhatsApp, and I'm sure many of you would have seen it, that who brought the digital transformation in your company? Was it the CEO, the CTO, or the COVID? And the third option is COVID is right? So I think suddenly everyone first have realized the power of technology. We want to put that to use. We want to minimize our travel in the future, and we are realizing that we can do meetings much more efficiently by using this platform. And all this could be plowed back into some other form to serve our patients and to some of our customers. So I think this is a quick take on what I see the business evolving in the short long term.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ranade. Dr. Kowshik, I think just to build on that question, we got a very interesting insight or a question from our attendee as well. You definitely please take the time to talk about what are you doing in the short and the long term. But specifically, somebody has asked, how does it change in the context of blue-collar workers who are not only worried about the emotional impact, but also there is a financial undertone to their, whether it is job security or other issues. So if you can touch upon what the organization is doing, and specifically in the context of blue-collar workers.
Okay. As of now, that's a very valid question. At the same time, it's a too complex question to answer, as I'm a medical professional looking after the health and safety. However, I am part of the crisis management team. The information what we get is we are not going to touch on anyone's job at this stage at all. For us, it is basically we are supporting them in many aspects financially to not to cut their salaries to any extent. That's a government direction too. Secondly, we have a policy in the company built in called basically stop, think, and restart. And this we basically saying that there are a couple of jobs which should come forward, which would be not required in future. So we got to stop those things, but restart and make sure these resources are available for some other activities. For example, we are looking at revenue generating models, like how people can go to other company to help them build the Toyota business practices and Toyota production system, how they can be a consultant to other companies to support them. So we know that a couple of jobs would not be required. Say, for example, the requirement, the cars comes down, we may require maybe, 50 or 60% of them. But with the other 40, we are seeing how we can basically, use them in other activities so that the resources, that's what we want to make the resources and build their capacity to handle some other activity so that their jobs are kept secured.
Great. And so there's another question which has come, which is also related to your type of industry, is how do you keep people motivated given that there is no visibility on what is going to happen, right? I mean, none of us have any answers, right? Whether it is the job security, whether how the industry will go, how manufacturer will come back. What are the 2 or 3 things that your organization is thinking about doing from a mental well-being perspective? You spoke about a lot of activities that are already going on at Toyota, but anything else that you would like to add?
Frankly, we are on it's work in progress. We have some short measures, to be frank, short-term measures, just to manage the situation as of now. But to go on to the future, which we need to get some, we need to get some evaluation or survey or some sort of inputs to come in as the days go by to understand what are the difficulties or issues which you'd be facing. And then we would try to form an, action or framework, how to go about in the future. So it is too early for us to, and this is struck us like a lightning for us to, respond to that level of, to going in future. As of now, we are trying to hold it till that certain time now. How we can hold the situation is what we are focused as of now.
Great. I think that's a very important point and goes along with what Mr. Ranade was saying, that doing a bi-weekly or weekly sprint and informing people that this is what we are thinking now, when we don't have all the answers, I think is clearly a good way to go. Dr. Rama, there is an interesting question for you, which is somebody from the sales field or people on the field. They are saying that I'm not used to be sitting in front of a computer and doing all these Skype meetings, which is, I think, a very valid turn of events. So how do you deal with this sudden requirement to sit in one place? And I think this is a huge issue for field staff, and it's impacting their health. Any thoughts, Dr. Rama?
Yes. First of all, I sympathize with you. I'm a doctor by profession and at heart. Administration is very new to me. I also find it very difficult to sit still in a meeting, and now we're doing it in front of a television, which is even more difficult. And actually, I feel like now I'm attending more meetings than before the lockdown, because now there's no excuse for people not being available or not being able to travel. So this is a new way of life, and it's really not healthy also to be sitting still for so long. So some of the things that I can say to you is, sitting for longer periods and try to doing things sometimes can become very inefficient, especially if you're sleep deprived. So take the time to get up, to move around, to exercise. And you don't have to exercise all at once if you don't want to. Even do it in bouts if you can. Maybe set a schedule, write down a list of things that you need to do for the day, and then try to be flexible about how you do it and how much time, calculate how much time you'll require and in what order you can do it so that you can incorporate some type of exercise. When we're going out, see in college, we move around so much that the need for exercise isn't so much when we're younger, because half of what we do is exercise. And being in the sales force, it may be similar since you're up and about all the time. But now sitting still, now suddenly it's become very difficult. So try to control your diet, number one, because eating more and being less active is a bad combination. But even if you have to do it at home, find activities that you can do, such as jumping jacks, skipping rope, sit-ups, push-ups, yoga, meditation, and put up your day in that way. And I think it's been helping me, and I think it may help you also.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rama. I think we are getting more questions, but I wanted to touch on one more aspect before we go to the attendee question. From a corporate perspective, Dr. Kowshik, Mr. Ranade, and Dr. Rama, what is it that we can, we spoke about initiatives that we're doing as individuals, as leaders, as organizations, but is there an opportunity now to do something together, right? We are now hosting this under the umbrella of CII and Arogya World. Is there an opportunity now for example, CII to build a separate stream focused on emotional well-being? Is there something that we can do as an industry collective or together? Any thoughts on that area?
I'll start. Definitely. I think hopefully now that people have gone through so much, there must be a relook as to what's really important and what the priorities should be. And I think maybe relooking at our priorities. For instance, like China, the GDP meant everything. And there was a whole generation where the families were split up and older people and younger people were separated from the people because their measure of success was the bottom line and how much the manufacturing turnover was, and the GDP was their measure of success. Now everybody is seeing, and I'm hearing that India is going to be a new place that a lot of people look at. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our country. But at the same time, I hope that in the process, we try to keep in mind what's really important for us. So as we grow, what type of things do we need to pay attention to and make sure that we preserve? So for one thing, our factories at Amara, a lot of them are in rural areas where people were able to stay with the families. And I'm seeing the fact that they are in communities and with their families during this time. I feel people feel a lot more nurtured and supported, not only because of the connection and communication engagement from the company, but also because of their connection with their families. So as we go forward, I really hope that we think holistically as an industrial body as well as a nation to think of the right way to go forward and what is most important for us, like family, happiness, health. See, even health, look at the position we're in, not having enough facilities, and which is one of the main reasons for the lockdown. And putting together a healthcare industry, it's so difficult to do anything because of the amount of licenses, the taxes that we have to pay. But to get the type of equipment we need, we don't have all of it in India right now. So I think looking at the priority that the nation has put in healthcare is also important. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Ashwin, if I may add, I think that's a good question from your side. And I would only put it this way that, look, epidemics don't last long, but the learnings from the epidemics last long. So, I completely agree with what Dr. Manah said. I think this epidemic is really going to shift a lot of behavior of also sort of reset, our at the same time, one thing is very clear that we are going to come out of this whole crisis more stronger. And I think there are very clear areas where companies organizations like CII can take leadership. So one is, I'm sure every one of us as individual companies are doing a lot in terms of supporting the government to tackle this crisis. So in part of Johnson & Johnson, we are focused in terms of donating PPE kits, masks, and so on and so forth. We're working with various NGOs. Another good thing which I've seen, Dr. Ashwin, which spontaneously emerged out, all of our employees are very big into giving. So on their own individually, they're doing a lot of community service. Giving foods to people who are not possibly, getting access to one meal. Or even feeding stray dogs on the road, and also there are many such good things which they are doing. To your point, yes, I think CII can take leadership in many initiatives. And I think one thing which clearly needs a lot of attention is how do we ensure that we take everyone out of this in a healthy state of mind. I think that's going to be very important. So I would really encourage some form of a mental support program or something like that coming out, because this is something which is not very adequately focused on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an important point that you made. In addition to my day job, I also run a volunteer group, and we have set up a mental health counseling helpline, and we have 300 volunteers there. And initially, it was started for people who probably are distressed because of loss of jobs, or healthcare workers, which was our primary focus, because doctors and nurses are not only worried about infection, but they're also getting attacked in many cases. So the initial few days, we got a lot of calls from people in this community. But recently, in the last week or so, we are getting a lot of calls from employees and HR folks who are calling us and saying, can we use this facility for our team members, etc. And I think, companies like J&J who are established, who already have access to EAP, you have an established structure to support employees. But I think there are many smaller companies, 500, 300 people companies, who don't have and were never planned for it. So maybe creating an industry-wide approach to building this support might be a good way, as you suggest. Dr. Kowshik, if you can talk about, how as a industry which is involved in manufacturing and other businesses, Toyota, I think we all know as an automobile company, but Toyota behind the scenes does a lot more than just build automobiles. So, what is it that as a group you are thinking about, and what is it that as a contributor to this ecosystem can we do together?
All right. What we are looking at, yes, mental health issue would be the next wave post-COVID. The next biggest issue, what would come forward is the mental health issues. With the post-effect, people either losing their loved ones, losing their job, they're relocating from their, from their hometown, or any new normals coming in. And to cope with that situation, I am not sure how good our Indians would be, because we are quite sentimental compared to others. There is one big obstacle also for these health programs on mental health is social stigma associated attached to it. Even now, we have these EAP counselors. We have an online option to consult on our email. But when we do a physical consult where they want to visit once in a week to a company, for example, we see a lot of taboo. People think mental health issues is something like a taboo to just openly discuss with. So that's something we need to slowly, break this stigma around these mental health issues and make people feel free, like any other general illness, that, mental health issue is a common problem. They think that it's being mad. If you're going to meet a counselor, means, he's mad. So those change in the thinking perspective has to be slowly brought in by education and awareness to the people around. And it would be good that CII takes it in a bigger level, on a larger scale, to address this issue, as this human resource is one of the important assets for any of the organization. And breaking this, social stigma around the mental health would help many people to seek the support for such activities on mental health.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kowshik. I think that's an important point. Clearly, there is a huge effort needed, and it's a multi-sectoral approach that we will need for such an issue. And clearly, there is not only mental health stigma, but now also compounded with corona stigma, right? I mean, people are so scared of even getting their testing done, which is a significant roadblock to getting this pandemic under control. Now, I think we are running into the last few minutes of this webinar, and we have some more questions coming in. I want to pick out a few that we can look at. The one that I think is coming again and again is how to manage your own emotions. And looks like the leaders are grappling with this. We have touched upon this in few different contexts, but any best practices that each one of you have adopted for your own mental well-being? Mr. Ranade, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I think, and I think we discussed about this, that humans are social animals, right? And we derive energy from each other. So I think what works for me is basically to be in touch with my teams, talking to them, checking on their well-being, having a proper schedule, as Dr. Rama mentioned. I think, this lines between work and home are disappeared, right? So it's important to set up a good schedule to the day and try to manage it that way. I think these are some of the things which are really helping me to keep my emotions in check. And of course, utilizing some of the downtime to spend closely with my family, because, my son is back from the US, he's a teenager, so he doesn't no longer need me. But then, the good thing is that we are all three together, and we're using this time to, sort of talk to each other more often. And sharing and looking at some of the old family photographs, some of the pictures what we have snapped along the way, different vacations and so on. So I think these are some of the things which are really working well for me.
Perfect. Thank you. Dr. Rama? Sorry, you're on mute, Dr. Rama.
So
okay.
One thing is, like it was just said, is spending time with my family. I had a new grandson that I've not been able to see yet, but I watch his videos like 10 times a day whenever I take a break. That is really helping. The other thing that's helping is getting together with my team at work, which consists of mostly nurses and a few other doctors, and thinking about the new things that we're going to do once the lockdown is lifted. Ours is a new organization, so planning about how we can be creative in doing new things when we start work again has also been very helpful. Because rather than feeling what do you call it, tied down, like we're not able to do anything, trying to think of ways to get back on track and stronger is also helpful. So staying connected with family, exercising, which helps with sleep, with regulation of the autonomic system and emotions, and also planning for the future.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. I think given that you are on the both sides of the equation, running the healthcare facility and also managing operation gives you a big advantage in that sense. So I want to come back to another interesting piece that we are observing, but let's finish with Dr. Kowshik on his view on this point.
All right. Is it audible?
Yes.
All right. I just try to maintain my routine. That's the most important aspect, because just 1 or 2 days I too just enjoyed getting up late, but later I realized it's not working around. So just plan and stick to the schedule as if I'm going at 7:30 to my office. I just be ready by 7:30. I start with a meeting with the teams, with the crisis management. So I keep myself as if I'm going to office wearing the dress, not just with my formals, casuals around, just with my formals. It really helps. And ergonomic is one of the biggest aspects of people working for 8 hours, not having the right kind of tools with them, would end up in some musculoskeletal issues. So I advise that having the right chair and right things around them to work. Usually people work 6 to 8 hours at least, even though they are at home. Having a meal at the right time, and of course I have some distraction strategies when you really it's not easy to work from home.
Right.
I play some chess online or some puzzles, break some puzzles just to distract myself. And obviously, as it is just not a social distancing. What we see is basically I can go for a walk, but just keep a distance of 1 meter from other guys. So people are really scared. I've seen, including my old parents, they're very scared to go out of the gate. So though I keep telling that it's just that you keep a distance. You don't have to, the Prime Minister has instructed, don't go out of their, the Lakshman Rekha, so they don't want to go out of the gate. So somewhere we have to encourage them that it socially interact, but physically distance is not socially distance totally. And one more aspect is focus on the facts. Get the information. Overconsumption of this news is also a part of anxiety problems. So we just ask to switch off people to watch the news maybe once in the morning for 5-10 minutes and evening 5-10 minutes, but not keep over consuming the news or the social media for long.
Sure. Absolutely. I think those are two important points. I also wanted to bring about this shift in thinking, if you will. Dr. Rama is running a factory and a organization in a let's say tier 2 town, right? And Mr. Ranade, you are in Bombay, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Kowshik is stuck in between. He lives in Bangalore, but the factory is in Bidadi. So is there a shift in thinking in organizations, given that these kind of pandemics are impacting bigger cities much more, I would say, intensely? Will there be a shift in resources to the smaller towns? Is that a trend that you are seeing? And is it better for you as organizations and people's mental well-being?
I think it's a little different for the healthcare industry, right? So because we are into serving patients, so we don't necessarily try and look at it geographically, right? So we are here to serve every single patient. So while we focus on metros, we do focus on the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, and depending upon the sales force, there's an ability to which we can reach out. So I don't necessarily see that shift happening. Yes, I think to some extent everyone is now sort of reimagining what the future will post COVID. And I did talk about the need maybe to use technology more. And we are realizing that this technology has greater power for us to reach more number of patients and so on. So obviously all that will be deployed, but I don't necessarily see a shift moving from metros to any other particular area or vice versa. Many friends in my industry are also discussing about do we need really office as big as what we're having? And of course, not change the thinking at this point in time. I just want to make that clear. More like people are now thinking, do we really need to have big offices? So these are all some of the things which all business leaders are forced to think. In terms of how they will have to embrace new ways of working. And hopefully, those ways will be good, efficient, and help us to reach more and more number of patients. So I think I would leave it there, Dr. Ashwin.
Great. Dr. Kowshik?
One good thought as such. As a company, when we have a normal working day, we would have 10,000 of them working together. It's a real big challenge. Over time, definitely the companies would be thinking of doing things, if, for example, if there is a one positive case, there would be indefinite shutdown for months together. So the business would be thinking in future to not congregate all together. They might be trying to, make things less condensed in one area. That's what would be anticipated. Of course, for office or white collar type of environment, I guess the new norm would be work from home. That would be the new norm coming soon for all who are, on a white collar type of an environment. But when it comes to people just splitting themselves from city and going to hometown, I would see that there will be a huge number of influx of people from the city to their to the rural areas, particularly the unorganized sector and people or people who are on daily wages, or the construction workers. We see that they may not return quickly back to.
Right.
The government authority also don't encourage them to come at this stage quickly back to the work. So we will see some disruption for a couple of months more. Again, it is too fluid to conclude.
Right. Absolutely. Dr. Rama, you are in a better position to answer this because you have your operations in there. Anything that you want to share that can be either replicated in the urban area? I know, we had a very interesting point that while there is lockdown, being with their families has been, a blessing for many people in your organization. Anything else that you want to share on that line?
One thing is, especially in healthcare, all organizations, people are seeing, are there different ways we can do things? And this has been an eye-opener. Like initially, even though Amara is known for strong communication and engagement, when we had to get messages through, we realized we didn't have the proper connections and infrastructure to communicate with everybody at once. And one of the first things we did is we made sure that was there. Might have taken us longer otherwise, so we were able to stay in communication with them. The other thing in healthcare, what I've noticed is there were so many restrictions on doctors. They were saying you can't talk to patients and give them advice over the phone. It's punishable if you give them a medication over the phone. And while I agree that there should be good medicine practice, sometimes it is necessary to talk to people over the phone. One of the first things they said is that e-consultations and talking over the phone is allowed because of the situation that we were in. When there was so much difficulty getting permissions for so many things, they gave permission for almost everything. And they said, just open your doors up, open up the beds because we're going to need them. When it used to take so long to get essential equipment like ventilators, which just weren't available in our country, they said, okay, go ahead and bring them, we'll cut the taxes. Because they realized how important it was. And, the violence against the doctors, I think now people are really opening their eyes and realizing if we don't make it safe and possible for people to work, the next generation of people, we may not see people going into healthcare. And when things like this arise, we're not going to have the healthcare workers or the facilities that we require. So I think this is one area that is going to see a lot of changes, hopefully.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rama. I think very important points there on healthcare workers and specifically about how things change when the context is different, both from a regulatory point of view and also as organizations. Thank you so much. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. And, if I were to summarize a few things from this, I just try to look at one or two things that you said. The most important message that we got from you, Mr. Ranade, is that epidemics don't last, but the learnings from this will last for a long time. I think that's a very important message for all of us to take with us as we move into the new world. Dr. Rama, you had emphasized this fact multiple times, is to think about what is important, what is truly important for us. And I think that's a question that everybody is asking ourselves, but great to reemphasize that. And Dr. Kowshik, your suggestion that we start with the thought that we are here for you as employees, as team members, as leaders. I think that's a great summary of what Toyota is doing and what all of us should be thinking about. Also, what emerged was a very sort of call to action on how we can work together to address this very important issue of mental health, not just as individual organizations and leaders, but can we do something collectively possibly in collaboration with CII and other organizations. I think these are, like we said in the beginning, these are early days. Nobody has any answers, concrete answers, but it looks like we are all moving in the right direction. So I thank you, all three of you, for your time and your leadership in this space. And I'm sure that we will be talking again on this important topic on this platform. Thanks again. Thank you, CII. Thank you, Arogya World. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwin.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwin.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation. On behalf of CII, I would like to thank all the panelists, and I'm sure everyone has immense information from all your valuable inputs. Thank you once again.